Set in the year 1995 in the middle of the war period in Ireland, the movie starts with Eddie's parents hopelessly watching as the teenage boy fails to do a pull-up. His father is a war hero, and being his son, Eddie is set to join the army after he graduates, but his chances seem slim. Eddie is an anguished guy struggling to find his identity in the swarm of heterosexual teenage boys. Boys who just keep pushing him to get it on with girls. Amber is the school outcast. She cannot be bothered by the other students, and the other students do not shy away from making fun of Amber for not being a normal girl. She gets called names, but instead of cowering away, Amber scowls and holds her ground. At school, Eddie gets teased by his friends for not even having kissed a girl yet. Kev is the worst of them all. He asks if Eddie is gay, using a slur, and Eddie just can't accept that. He takes a random girl's name to shut his friend up. Kev, being the big bully that he is, gets Eddie a date behind the school with Tracy. Despite Eddie's reservations, the peer pressure and his desperation to fit in with the straight guys force him to go with Tracy. But when Tracy starts to kiss him, Eddie is unable to reciprocate with the same fervor because he is undeniably gay. But Eddie will not accept that about himself. After the embarrassing time with Tracy, Eddie awkwardly rushes to class. In the class, Eddie can't help but stare at the math teacher. He has an obvious crush on the man but tries his best to ignore it. But Amber notices it. Kevin makes fun of Eddie's failed experience with Tracy in the middle of the class and embarrasses Eddie. Amber has a small side business going on in the town. She secretly rents out a caravan at her mother's caravan park to the students who want to get some alone time with each other and charges them 10 quids for 30 minutes. When she tries making small talk with one couple, the girl calls Amber a lesbian. Amber denies it, even though she knows that it's true. She is yet to come out to the world. Amber's mother does not know about her business, of course. When Amber gets home, her mother preaches to her about being a good girl, even though she was the one who got pregnant at 19. Having recently lost Amber's father, her mother asks if she would like to stay home for his anniversary, but Amber doesn't want that. She has a somewhat strained relationship with her mother. Inside her room, Amber stacks the monkey in a box under her bed and stares at the ceiling above her, where she has stuck a map. Amber dreams to escape this town. At Eddie's house, Eddie and his brother sit awkwardly at the dinner table, while his parents bicker in the other room. This behavior is a staple in their household, and while the two boys seem bothered, they are not surprised. At the table, Ian asks Eddie about his training, but that only annoys their mother Hannah more. To diffuse the tension, Eddie's brother, Jack, brings up the school gossip about Eddie having kissed a girl, and how it was a missed hit. Ian, on the other hand, is just happy that Eddie is at least becoming a man now. The next day at school, the boys again make fun of Amber by making obscene and inappropriate gestures pertaining to her being a lesbian. Amber finds Eddie and tries to strike up a conversation with him, but Eddie is lost in his own world. Gathering enough courage, Eddie walks over to Tracy and asks her out, and is obviously rejected. Eddie becomes the laughingstock once again. Amber, having watched the embarrassing exchange, has an idea. Eddie is riding his bike home when he gets hit with a rock on the head. He tumbles to the ground, and Amber stands there. She proposes that she will go out with him on a date. Eddie is stumped for words, but when the group of boys passes them by, calling them derogatory names, he agrees. That night, Eddie and Amber catch a movie together, but they are the only ones in the cinema not making out. The awkward movie date ends, and they get some food. Amber asks Eddie why he wants to join the army, and he replies, albeit unconvincingly, that the fire of war turns one into a man. This is a touchy subject for Eddie, and it upsets him. Amber holds his hand to keep up the pretense of their date for the prying eyes. While dropping her back home, Amber thanks him for the date and tells him that she had fun. Eddie takes it as a sign to make a move on her. But Amber ends that before it even starts. She knows he is gay, but Eddie is so much in denial that he will not accept it. Not even when she tells him that she has seen the way he looks at the math teacher. Amber confesses that she is gay too, but she is just tired of being bullied. She offers that they pretend to be a couple, so everyone will leave them alone, but Eddie holds his denial like a safety blanket. He just will not accept that he is gay. He is terrified of it, so much so, that he writes it down on paper over and over again, as if it will cure his inner turmoil. Eddie goes about his life training for the military, even though he is the worst at it. At school, when kids still make fun of Amber and him, Eddie finally builds up the courage to publicly ask Amber to shift, and Amber accepts. They head out behind the building to keep up the pretenses and get their stories straight. They will pretend to date for the rest of the school year. But even upon making this agreement, Eddie still will not accept out loud that he is gay. They reluctantly hold hands and go out in public. In class, Amber and Eddie sit closely for the benefit of others. When Kev makes an inappropriate comment about them, the teacher sends him to the principal's office. Later, when the class is dismissed, the teacher stops Eddie. He expresses concern over Eddie and asks if the other boys are giving him a hard time. Eddie denies it easily. The teacher pats his arm and offers him comfort. When Eddie walks out of the class, he has an air of renewed confidence about him. He puts an arm around Amber, and the two walk down the hallway, flaunting their new relationship. They spend some time together after school. While talking, Eddie finds out about Amber's side business at the caravan park. She tells him how she has been saving up and has made over $2,000. She's saving it for the end of school, which is when she will finally get to move out of this place that she hates. She's going to go to London and open an anarchist bookshop. While she is leaving, Eddie asks her out to dinner with his parents, and Amber accepts. Eddie is preparing for Amber's arrival when his father gets home from work. He asks Eddie about his fitness test. He wants Eddie to make it into the ranks. He can't imagine what would happen to his reputation if his son did not make it. He could never live it down. Hannah does not like the way Ian puts that pressure on Eddie. This has been one of the causes of their many fights. The doorbell rings, and Eddie runs to open it. Amber stands there in a dress, and Eddie awkwardly kisses her as the parents watch. At the dinner table, Hannah and Ian struggle to converse with the kids. While talking about career paths, Ian and Hannah get into an argument over Eddie's future in the army. Hannah wants him to consider other options, while Ian wants him to stay focused. The awkward dinner ends with Eddie taking Amber to his room. Amber takes in the surroundings of Eddie's room. He has tried too hard to make his room as straight as he could, with military posters. She makes a comment about how bad his parents' marriage seems, but Eddie is in denial about that as well. Eddie finds out that Amber is not a virgin, and that she had slept with a guy once. But it was not good for her, at all. She does not think the two of them are missing out on anything special by being gay, despite the torment they get for it. Later, while saying goodbye, they kiss for Eddie's parents' benefit, and Amber bites him, leaving evidence of their relationship. At school, they walk holding hands, and Eddie's status is repaired for getting some. Amber and Eddie begin spending more time together. While Eddie dreams about being free and accepting of his sexuality, Amber dreams of leaving this place. They grow closer as the days pass by. At the school dance, they are the only couple on the floor. Eddie continues with his military training despite hating it. One day, while a couple is leaving the caravan park after wrapping up their business, Amber demands her fee, but the guy gives her 2 small pills instead. Later, Amber places some flowers on the tree, from which her father had hung himself. She still mourns his loss. Amber and Eddie decide to skip school one day and go to Dublin. They drink booze and travel the city, enjoying each other's company. Walking down the street, Amber asks him why he can't skip the commandos and go away with her after school. But Eddie has no answer for her. When he spots a bar with the pride flag outside, they decide to check it out. Inside, both Amber and Eddie have a surreal experience. While Eddie is drawn to the singer on the stage and takes comfort in the person's warm, accepting embrace, Amber is approached by a girl named Sarah. Amber promptly tells her that she is not a lesbian and points at Eddie, who is her boyfriend. While Eddie has his life-changing experience, Amber and Sarah form a friendship of sorts. Eddie returns a while later, asking Amber to get back and catch the train, lest they miss it. He is in a mood. Amber leaves, but not before Sarah invites her to a party next weekend. On their way back home, they both think back to their experiences. Eddie returns home very late. He wakes his dad, who is sleeping on the couch. His parents had another disagreement, apparently. While talking to Eddie, Ian remembers his father and how hard he used to be on him, and it brings him to tears. Amber's mother is also awake and waiting for her. She gets into an argument with her over how she has been out late drinking, and when her mother says how disappointed her father would have been in her, Amber lashes out. She says that he does not get an opinion, because he took his own life. Amber retires to her room and cries. At school, Eddie has become the center of attention. He still suppresses his desires toward other boys. When Kevin asks if he has slept with Amber yet, Eddie feels cornered. Later, he talks to Amber about how he is thinking about going to London with her. Amber is wholly accepting of that. He then asks her if he can at least tell people that they have slept together. Amber agrees, on the condition that they go to the party in Dublin. Kevin trains with his father, which feels like complete torture to him. While cleaning up Kevin's room, Hannah discovers Kevin's notebook with extremely graphic drawings inside it. It then hits the woman, as she takes in Kevin's room, just how oblivious they have been. Amber and Eddie convince her mother to let Amber go to Dublin, on the pretense of watching a play for the school. The lady agrees but tells her to be back by midnight. They take her mother's car and drive to the party. In the parking lot, Amber offers him the pills she got from those kids the other day. Though he's reluctant at first, Eddie eventually takes them. Inside the party, Eddie and Amber sit awkwardly in the corner, until it's their system. And then they lose themselves in the crowd, dancing and enjoying. Sarah takes Amber away, and the two end up in a different room, talking and enjoying their buzz. Amber finally confesses to her that Eddie is not her boyfriend. Back on the dance floor, Eddie is approached by a boy, and even though he claims to have a girlfriend, Eddie goes with him to dance. The boy starts to get close to Eddie, and they kiss. Just as Eddie is enjoying it, he spots a guy, Cyan, from his cadet training class, and Eddie panics. He pushes the boy away and tries to escape, but Cyan catches up to him to talk. Eddie pushes Cyan away, and that forces the bouncers to take Eddie out. Chaos erupts as Amber returns and fights the bouncer. Eddie escapes the club, panicked. He is a mess, thinking how he might have just exposed himself to everyone. He is hysterical as he hugs Amber, and she comforts him. Eddie is just relieved to have Amber. At night, as they sleep in the car, Eddie wishes he could be normal. He talks about how perfect it would be if only things could work out between him and Amber. In the morning while driving home, Eddie still won't talk about what happened the night before. He blames it on the drugs. When Amber drops Eddie home, her mother is also there. She is absolutely livid and gets into a fight with Eddie's parents. She warns them to keep their son away from her daughter. Eddie and Amber realize just how much trouble they are in. Eddie is in bad shape, and his mother hugs him comfortingly before he goes to his room. Ian wonders if they're not going to punish Eddie, and Hannah angrily tells him that he's been an absent father for half a year, so he doesn't get to make decisions. Jack comes to Eddie's room. He assumes that Eddie slept with Amber on that trip, and makes sure that his brother definitely used protection. Meanwhile, their parents continue fighting. The next morning when Eddie meets Amber, she tells him that they should take some time off until her mother calms down. Eddie does not want to let her go, but he has no choice. Days pass, and the news of Amber and Eddie going through a rough patch spreads around the school. One day when Amber is not at school, Eddie goes to her house to check up on her. Her mother greets him. She tells him that Amber is not home, and is probably out watching a play with someone else, which disturbs Eddie. Amber is out visiting Sarah. She comes clean to her about her relationship with Eddie, and they spend the entire day together. They go out on a fun date, and end the day by sharing a kiss. It is Eddie's final cadet exam, and his father drops him off. The man makes sure to let Eddie know that he will be okay if Eddie chooses to not do this. Not everyone is made for the army, but Eddie is adamant about proving himself. He gets out, and Cyan catches up to him. He just wants to talk to Eddie, but Eddie doesn't listen to him. He finds Amber waiting for him. He asks her where she was the day before, and Amber lies and says she was sick. Eddie wants them to get back together. He kisses her, knowing that he is being watched. Amber does not reciprocate though. She wants to talk to him later and leaves, wishing him good luck with the exam. While doing an exercise, Cyan tries to help Eddie up a wall, and the other boys make fun of them. Eddie, full of so much pent-up rage, kicks Cyan to the ground. At school, when Eddie finds Amber, he wishes they could just get back together. But Amber does not want that anymore. Eddie argues that they can keep their relationship without being physically involved. But Amber does not want to skip the physical part. The two get into a very public argument. Eddie begs her not to do it, but Amber still breaks it off with him. She tells him that he could tell people that he broke it off with her. Eddie, still completely in denial and at war with his true self, can't help but accept those consequences. When he gets home, Eddie's parents are waiting for him. They find out about Eddie's breakup and console him. Later, they open Eddie's test results, and he finds out that he was accepted into the army. His father's joy is over the roof, but Eddie cannot bring himself to care. That night, Amber comes out to her mother. The woman is in deep shock. It takes some time, but she eventually accepts her. At school, Jack brings Eddie the news of Amber coming out as a lesbian. There is even a rumor out there that says Eddie turned her into one. Eddie's worries know no end. Amber can't walk the hallways without being the center of attention. When she finds Eddie, she tries to talk to him, but he pushes her away, screaming at her and calling her a slur. Amber's shock runs deep, and she leaves from there. Eddie gets into a fight with Kevin when he tells him to be more sensitive about Amber. The math teacher breaks the boys apart and takes Eddie away for a talk. While the man comforts him, Eddie misreads his signals and kisses the man. This creates an even bigger misunderstanding for Eddie. The teacher panics about the ethical code. Not to mention, he is married. Eddie leaves for home, but gets hit by a rock and falls off the bike. Amber stands over him, cursing at him for disrespecting her. Eddie asks her why she had to ruin everything between them. Amber makes him understand, once and for all, that it would never have worked between them. Eddie still thinks it would have been better than being gay. Amber leaves him, saying that it is not about him being gay, but about who he is. Eddie approaches Tracy and plays the victim card. He makes her his girlfriend as a replacement for Amber. Meanwhile, Amber introduces Sarah to her mother. It is the last day of school, and while everyone is burying hatchets, Amber and Eddie stay at crossroads with each other. Meanwhile, Amber and Sarah's relationship grows into a blissful one. Amber is happy to have finally found someone she can be her true self with. As for Eddie, he is still struggling every day. He can't fit in with the new friends that he has, and Tracy is only a deflecting shield for him. While at the bar, Eddie meets Cyan. He panics when he sees the other boy and leaves. Cyan follows Eddie out. He lets Eddie take comfort in the fact that he is the same as him. And with how they are and how they feel, all they can do is just move on and try to live a happy life. Eddie's parents worry about him and their marriage. Meanwhile, one day, Amber finds out about Eddie leaving for the army. Before he leaves, Eddie's mother comforts him, assuring him that he can always tell her anything. She hopes that Eddie would confide in her about his struggles, but Eddie remains scared and stubborn. In her most conflicting moment, Amber visits her dad's tree and seeks counsel. The family bids Eddie a teary goodbye before he leaves. While Amber is escorting a young couple to the caravan, she finds the pictures of her and Eddie stuck in the door frame, and then she makes a run for it. Just before Eddie is about to leave, Amber catches up to him. She gives him her money box and urges him to leave. Take the money and leave Ireland, she tells him. Eddie argues that he is happy, but Amber knows better than that. He has to take the money and go. He can't be who he needs to be in that place. Eddie wants her to come with him, but Amber can't do that. This is something Eddie needs to do on his own. Even though he is scared, Amber assures him that he can do it. Eddie returns the box to her and prepares to leave, but as the military men make the last call for the recruits, Eddie can't seem to walk in that direction. He turns to Amber and confesses, for the first time ever, that he is gay. Amber rejoices in his confession. She feels so proud of him for finally getting there. The two reconcile, and Amber gives him the box of money, asking him to go. And Eddie goes. He leaves Ireland, and while on the train, Eddie finds the pictures of him and Amber inside the box. They give him strength. In the end, Amber feels liberated, not just for herself, but for Eddie as well.